Hello, this is Chenelle Hitchcock, author of From Broken to Beautiful, How to Be Calm, Happy and Slim. Thank you to the many subscribers that have downloaded the book. And the reason you downloaded the book was probably because you're suffering some degree of adrenal fatigue or burnout. I know that I suffered major burnout 10 years ago, and I actually got to the stage where I really couldn't even lift my head off the pillow, let alone function. So I've learned a massive amount of information about how to cope with burnout and the strategies that you need to overcome burnout. In fact, I've become somewhat of an expert in this area. And that's why I wrote the book From Broken to Beautiful, How to Be Calm, Happy and Slim. But what causes burnout? Well, most people don't realise that when we're exposed to chronic stress, our adrenal glands have to produce more of the adrenal hormone cortisol. So when you're initially exposed to a lot of stress over a long period of time, which we call chronic, then your body will need more cortisol. So it has to produce increased amounts of cortisol. And that has very serious and damaging effects on your body, including causing insomnia, in causing weight gain. It's linked to heart disease, diabetes, obesity. It weakens your immune system. It impairs your brain function. And so you don't want those nasty symptoms. However, producing declining levels of cortisol or having declining levels of cortisol is also equally as bad, if not worse. So initially, as I explained just then, when you're first exposed to stress, your body has to produce more cortisol. But if you continue to expose yourself to that stress, what happens is your body just starts producing less and less cortisol. So then you suffer declining levels of cortisol. And the symptoms of that, the main one is extreme lethargy, to the point where I just described my extreme lethargy, or we could call it burnout. That's what the current trend is, to refer to it as burnout, is where you literally cannot function. Doesn't matter how much sleep you get, how much coffee you drink, how many energy bars you eat, whatever supplements you're taking, you just don't have any energy to live your life. And energy is your life currency. You need energy to enjoy your life. So I'm going to read out the symptoms of declining levels of cortisol. The first one is extreme lethargy. You feel exhausted even though you've slept well. You feel like you just can't get out of bed. You can't handle loud noises or stressful situations. Your anxiety increases with increased levels, with declining levels of cortisol. I remember when I had my burnout, I was incredibly anxious. I couldn't stand loud noises, and I had extreme lethargy. Weight gain is another sign. Trouble sleeping, depression and mood swings, lightheaded when you stand up. Craving salt is a big sign. Overly emotional, overly tired, increased times to recover from illness. So you're taking a lot longer to get over your coughs and colds and whatever you get. You take so long to get over them because your body needs cortisol. It's one of the most important hormones to actually mount an immune response and fight disease. And if you have declining levels of cortisol, you'll find it very hard to recover from any illness. And experiencing brain fog. I remember when I got to the stage where I had my burnout, someone could have a conversation with me. I would remember the first sentence, but I certainly wouldn't remember 3 sentences down. Brain fog is a big symptom of declining levels of cortisol. So what are some of the things that cause you to experience burnout or declining levels of cortisol? There are many. And it all comes down to if your stress response is activated consistently. And there are millions of things that can activate your stress response, from being too hot to being too cold to having low blood sugar levels because you're not eating frequently enough. Emotional stress like worry, being a perfectionist, overworking, physical things. And also we can have things like loss of income, grief. Grief is a very big stress to the body. I know that when I lost my mother, I actually went into a stage where I had an adrenal crisis. So grief is a very big stress to the body. So there are millions and millions of stress that can activate your stress response and cause you to either initially be producing high amounts of cortisol, and if you keep pushing yourself over your limits over a period of time, your body will start to produce less and less cortisol till you get to the declining levels of cortisol, which is referred to as adrenal fatigue or burnout. Take your pick. Okay, so this video is a short one to alert you what are the symptoms of high levels of cortisol and declining levels of cortisol. Both are bad. You need to go and seek out a holistic doctor who can do saliva tests and blood tests. You need both because the blood tests will pick up the circulating cortisol in your blood, whereas the saliva test will pick up the cortisol that's actually in your cells. So you need both. And your body produces a different amount of cortisol at different times in the day. You produce your highest amount at 8 a.m. and then you slowly produce a less and less to the point at midnight where you're producing a very small amount. And then by 8 o'clock in the morning, you're producing your highest amount of cortisol. Now, if you're not producing the right amount of cortisol in the morning, you're not going to have the energy to get out of bed. And if you're producing too much cortisol at night, you're not going to be able to sleep. So I sort of talk about cortisol as the Goldilocks hormone because you have to produce the right amount at the right time. So I have come up with a whole lot of strategies to help overcome burnout, and I'm going to share them in my next video. So also to read my book, From Broken to Beautiful, How to Become Happy and Slim, and has an enormous amount of information about what causes stress and the strategies that you need to overcome adrenal fatigue or burnout. Bye for now and take care.